A maid's laughter, a saint's awakening. Sounds pretty dramatic, right? Well, we're about to dive into a story that really does hinge on one single, shocking moment. A moment of laughter, right in the face of incredible pain. And you'll see how that one sound just ripples out and ends up changing everything.
You know, it's a huge question. How can a simple story completely change a person's life? We tend to look for these big, complicated answers, right? But what if the biggest changes don't come from some grand plan, but from a tiny, simple detail that most of us would just overlook? Well, this story is a perfect example of exactly that.
Okay, so to see how this all unfolds, we have to go to a place of, well, ultimate luxury and power. We're starting our story in the Queen's royal bedchamber.
So, in this opulent chamber, there's a devoted maid, and her main job, her whole day really, is centered around one thing: preparing the queen's bed. We're talking meticulously smoothed linens, the most expensive perfumes. She's creating this perfect little sanctuary. It's the same thing day in and day out, but she always does it with absolute care. But then one day, something's different. The maid is just completely, utterly exhausted. And as she's looking at this incredible, magnificent bed, this little thought just creeps into her mind. Just for a second, I wonder what it feels like to rest here. And you can imagine it, right? The cool air in the room, that super soft mattress. The temptation was just too much. She lies down, just for a moment, she tells herself. But that exhaustion, it hits her like a wave. And boom, she's instantly, deeply asleep. And that one tiny moment of weakness, that's where this whole story just takes a massive, dramatic turn. Things are about to get really intense. And of course, as fate would have it, who walks in at that exact moment? The queen. Can you just imagine her shock, her absolute rage, finding a servant sleeping in her bed? Oh, the fury was instant, and it was total. And the punishment? It was swift, and it was brutal. The queen ordered 60 lashes. 60. Not a warning, not just firing her, no. A painful public humiliation. You can just hear it. The maid screams, begging for forgiveness, pleading with the queen to make it stop. But the queen, her heart was like stone. She was completely unmoved by the maid's suffering. She just watched. But then, something really strange happens. The screaming stops, the crying fades away, and there's just silence. And then, breaking that silence, comes the most impossible sound you could imagine: laughter. And I don't mean a little giggle. I mean a full-throated, completely unrestrained laugh. I mean, can you picture the scene? It was totally shocking. The queen is stunned. The guards are just confused. What is going on? How is this even happening? At this point, the queen is probably more confused than angry. I mean, she just can't wrap her head around it. Laughing while being punished like this, it makes no sense. So she storms over to the maid and just demands, "Why are you laughing?" And this reply from the maid is the pivot point for the entire story. This is what changes everything. She looks right at the queen and says, "I rested on this bed for a moment, and for that, I got 60 lashes. You sleep here every single night. Can you even begin to imagine the punishment that the one above has waiting for you?" Wow. I mean, just think about the logic there. It's brilliant, right? For a few minutes of comfort, she got this incredibly harsh, immediate punishment. And in that moment of pain, she has this massive realization, this epiphany about cosmic justice. If her tiny, tiny little indulgence cost this much, what's the final bill going to be for the queen's entire lifetime of luxury? It's just a stunning, mind-bending shift in perspective. And you know, a story that good isn't going to stay behind palace walls. That brilliant, incredible insight from the maid, it started to spread. The story of the laughing maid traveled like ripples in a pond, and trust me, its impact was far from over. So people told the story, and then those people told other people. It traveled way beyond the palace. And eventually, it reached the ears of this super wealthy, very powerful guy named Sapu Sahab. And this, right here, is the real power of an idea, of a simple story. For this guy, Sapu Sahab, hearing this wasn't just interesting, it was life-altering. The maid's simple, powerful logic just hit him so hard that he had to take a long, hard look at his own life of luxury. And you know what he did? He abandoned it all. He gave it all up for a new spiritual path.
So this man, who was once totally defined by his money and his status, he becomes this famous, respected saint. He later becomes known as Kathata Baba, and his entire incredible transformation, it all started with the story of a maid's laughter.
So let's just recap for a second. A moment of terrible suffering leads to a maid's incredible insight. That insight, when it's shared as a story, completely transforms a wealthy man into a saint. It really makes you think, doesn't it? It kind of begs the question for all of us. What small everyday thing that you see, what observation in your own life might actually hold the key to some much bigger lesson? What are you overlooking right now?